welcome you to the Learn from the Rest, Bring Down Walls and Highly Commended session. And to start us off, I'll pass you on to Paul.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Esin Esat from Better College. I am the Director of Sustainability at Better College. Today I'm joined with two other colleagues, Gareth Ellis from Cranfield University and Jackie Bagnall from University of Exeter. In a little while I'll pass you on to Gareth and then Jackie will take over, and finally I'll tell you a little bit about the winning and highly commended entries at Better College. Now, we have 6 projects that we can talk about today. Cranfield University's Carbon Brain Print project, which is under Research and Development category. We've got 3 examples of courses categories, 1 colleges and 1 skills. You will have about 20 minutes at the end of the session to ask us questions. So hopefully that will give you an opportunity to find out a bit more about what you want to know.
Yeah, so just for 10 minutes, I'll just give you a bit of background about the highly commended entry from Cranfield, carbon brain print. Start by making a confession. I'm not responsible for this in any way, shape or form. So I'm giving this presentation on behalf of David Parsons and Julia Tutterton, who actually did the work. And actually did go to the award ceremony and took the highly commended award that they got. Obviously, from convenience, I'm the only person here from Cranfield, so I'm giving this presentation just to give you an overview of what the work was and perhaps why it was highly commended. So it got highly commended in the R&D category. But I think it's of wider interest than those of you who might be involved in R&D, because it's looking at the impact of universities, not just Cranfield. It's looking at a methodology really for trying to judge the impact of the research, but not just the research, but also potentially the learning that colleges and universities do. In terms of the benefit to society for reducing carbon emissions. And we didn't even come up with the name carbon brain print. I think it was somebody in Kent who came up with that. But we've run with it and worked with a couple of other universities to develop this methodology. Yeah, one point to make. It isn't intended to be a way of offsetting our footprint. If we did that, well, you'll see from the numbers actually that tumble out of this, it would make nonsense of the other work that we're doing at Cranfield, which we did also enter for the Green Gowns, but didn't get an award for, which is on the carbon cutting side of things and the carbon management plan that we were operating. But it is a way of trying to, as I say, measure the impact of the work that universities and colleges do in this area. And it isn't just a finger in the air job, it is using methodologies which are out there, past 2050, IPCC guidelines, but it's actually looking at how to apply them for different types of work, whether it be research or learning, to come up with a measure which isn't a carbon footprint, hence the need for a different title, brain print, because it is looking at the way in which that research is actually being applied. It isn't for a specific product necessarily. And it's trying to gauge how that impact might evolve in the marketplace. It takes the same format as a footprint in that you are looking at trying to determine what are the boundaries. You're going to be gathering data about the marketplace, about the product and how it's going to be rolled out and how it's going to be applied. And clearly you're going to need to look at the baseline. So what would be the case if that product or service wasn't being provided, to come up with the ultimate blueprint. And because we're dealing with probably imperfect data, David has added in this uncertainty analysis as well to get a gauge for, given the information that's available, how accurate might that final result be. The methodology is available on the website, which I'll give you a reference to at the end. So if you want to look into this further or pass it on to somebody else, there is a website which has quite a bit of detail about the methodology and the case studies. And this perhaps gives you a better flavour of what it's about. So we've got 6 case studies that we worked on to apply the methodology to sort of come up with perhaps a range of potential activities that might have an impact carbon-wise. Number 1, ceramic coatings for turbine blades. Doesn't sound very significant, does it? But that's some research that's been going on at Cranfield, which applies to the aeronautical industry, very specifically to aero engines. And I think we've got some numbers coming up, but if not, I'll come back to that. Perhaps a more obvious one is some design work on a novel type of wind turbine, which you've got a picture of there, looking at a vertical axis wind turbine for offshore. School of Management at Cranfield been dealing with vehicle logistics. So this is not hard engineering research, this is more looking at logistics of vehicle delivery, software, and how that can be used to actually reduce carbon savings. And the next one, number 4, perhaps gives an example of how you might be able to apply the impact of learning. So there we've got some training that the School of Applied Sciences at Cranfield do for landfill gas inspectors, which then has a knock-on in terms of their capabilities, in terms of actually reducing methane emissions into the atmosphere. And then we've got 2 examples from other universities, one from the University of Cambridge, looking at oil refinery technology, and another one at the University of Reading, looking at building management systems. And I think we had a meeting yesterday of the carbon intensive universities, and I think this kind of thing maybe is quite important in terms of explaining to stakeholders, particularly where universities are having to perhaps burn more carbon than perhaps other universities are because of research that they're doing. It's very helpful to have this kind of tool, this carbon brain print, I think, to not offset it, but to actually sort of put things into context. And just to put it into context, going back to that turbine blade, so there's a bit of research work at Cranfield which was looking at a very small component within an aero engine. What they managed to achieve there, I think, was a 1% saving in terms of fuel, which doesn't sound much, but when you actually apply it to the number of aircraft which have applied the technology and the amount of fuel that they burn, we're looking at 570,000 tonnes of carbon a year, which is something like 20 times, no, more than 20 times the footprint of the university. So it's an important message to get across to perhaps funders, perhaps government, that university research and learning is having a potentially huge impact on where we're going in terms of carbon savings. And this gives you a range of the results that were achieved for the various case studies. So we're talking about hundreds of thousands of tonnes of carbon directly attributable to the research or the learning that was looked at in these case studies. So the carbon brain print itself was a little bit of research. It was there really to actually sort of show that it is possible to be scientific about this. It's relatively straightforward, provided you can get hold of the data. The bit of research that Cranfield's done has shown that it does work, and it can come up with some very impressive results. I think where David Parsons is now is that he would really like to roll that out to other universities, and there's the opportunity for you to get involved. If you go to the website, carbonbrainprint.org.uk, you'll find a lot of information about the background to this, the methodology used, and you can get involved directly if you think you've got a project that's appropriate, or you want to pass it on to someone else. Speak to David, and he can actually take you through it, and you can see if you can work out a brain print for something that I'm sure University of College is working on. And why did it get highly commended? I really don't know. Other than I think it maybe ticks some of these boxes here. So it is clearly applicable to a wide range, I think, of universities and colleges, if not all. It's actually quantifying the impact of those universities and colleges, so everybody should have an interest in it at least. And I think it is reasonably innovative to actually sort of go down this route and actually come up with a solution to a question that has been asked in the past.
Morning. I think last night was my latest night in about 5 weeks since the end of term, and to go to bed at 11 o'clock was wild, so I'm with you on the energy levels at the moment. I'm talking to you about a course, actually, the One Planet MBA from the University of Exeter. I'm going to mostly talk to you about how we came to radically change our MBA programme, and more importantly, why the green gown and applying for a green gown was important to us, and both how we take the programme forward, but also how we begin to influence and shape management education generally. So here's a mugshot. Here's the team at the Green Gown Awards. The person missing there is the person that probably carries the weight of the world on his shoulder, and that's Malcolm Kirkhope, who's our programme director. We had a flurry of awards and recognitions in the autumn, and that was great because that came after a year of hard work on Malcolm's part. The MBA in 2009-10 had got to a point where we really did need to radically overhaul what we were doing. I don't know how many of you land at the University of Exeter, but we're quite rural where we are. We don't have a travel to study sort of pattern. We're not near any great conurbation. There's not masses of industries. I think the Met Office and EDF are our biggest employers, alongside Devon County Council and the university itself. So historically, management and executive education is something we don't have vast numbers in. And our MBA programme, I think it would be fair to say, prior to the One Planet MBA was tired, and we weren't competing with those that were able to draw in because they could tap into big networks and businesses. So in 2010-11, we decided to run something called the Innovation Cohort, whereby we invited a group of people that had been applying for our MBA, to come on board with us and help to design this One Planet MBA. It's a new programme that we would be running in partnership with the WWF. We had 40 students, 40 full-time students for the University of Exeter, which was a high number, and they were very excited about this prospect of being co-creators on a programme. And we really did have a mix of those that wanted to look at sustainability and environmentalism, and those that wanted a standard, straightforward economics, finance, heavy MBA program. I was part of that year. I delivered personal professional effectiveness, leadership background, and it was really rather interesting when these 40 people arrived, because they said, you expect us to be sustainability experts, or you expect us to want to be brainwashed into being green, and all these kinds of things were coming at us. And I said, no, you're absolutely wrong. We have no expectations, we have no idea, we're on a journey together. And this kind of went across the room, and it was really rather lovely, because it then gave us the space in which to actually truly experiment. What were we aiming for, and why would we completely overhaul our MBA? We wanted reach. The people that instigated this were Professor Jonathan Gosling from the Centre for Leadership Studies, and a long-time friend of his, Jean-Paul Jean-Renaud from WWF. And they had this vision and this passion, which was about responsible management, which was about doing things differently. And that was to put a set of principles, guiding principles, underneath the programme as a whole. That if we have one planet with limited resource, then how should we be looking at how we do business, how we manage and how we lead? So it was this fundamental principle that they wanted to bring to life, and through that have reach and impact both in business, but I think in management education generally and around the world. Jonathan's work with Henry Mintzberg has had quite a good impact in terms of the 5 minds of the manager and this whole process of reflection and leadership. And for him, this partnership with an NGO was further endorsement of really wanting to shape things up. So I think reach and impact were very, very important, both for the students that took part in the programme, but into management education and reaching out across the world in terms of how we do things and why we do these things. Distinctiveness was the need for Exeter to find its niche in the MBA market, without a doubt. I mean, we worked, we needed a new story, we needed to tap into the region in which we operate. The Southwest, and our colleague here, Graham from FE in the Southwest, we are building a regional identity around renewables, sustainability. We have Schumacher, we have Eden, we have lots of projects down there. And what we're beginning to find is our international students are beginning to see that about our region. There was definitely a time when most of our international students thought the whole of England was London. And so to get on a train and be 3 hours right down into the corner, for some was quite a surprise. So that distinctiveness was very important to us, and we had to build our own identity, but also reinforce why you would come across and down to the region itself. Partnership, that's about inclusiveness. This only works well with all of our faculty wanting to get on board. And that was a process, in addition to the innovation cohort and working with a new group of students, we had some innovations to do with our own faculty members, persuading them to take their standard accountancy, economics, marketing, operations, supply chain, and actually begin to look at these things through a sustainable lens. Some absolutely embraced it and began to actually shape their own research profile or portfolio accordingly. And for others, that was just a stretch too far, and it was not a journey they were willing to go on. And so some of our faculty are external as we develop a sustainability theme right the way through our teaching at Exeter. So I won't say to you that's been rosy and immediate. It hasn't. It's definitely something we're building and developing in terms of faculty expertise. Partnerships with corporates is really important. We find that one of the things we're working on tremendously is the complete circle. Where do you go to after engaging in a program like this? What's waiting for you at the other end? And probably our next big piece of work is to create a receptive context for the people that we're shaping and developing, that we have employers who want people that have actually looked at the world in this way. And so partnership with employers is a really important thing. And for me, we tick that box when we begin to see corporates sending their people to us, because actually they believe that this is what they want back in their businesses. And I'll let them know. The process, the integration is is really important that we begin to bring these things together, that we develop elective modules that take things a little bit further, so we have biomimicry and lessons from nature. We put on a range of different electives drawn across the whole campus, so we had heritage and sustainable heritage, environmental sustainability audits, inviting different parts of the university. And in addition to that, we've just set up a One Planet Research Cafe, where we're again aiming for interdisciplinarity, whereby we actually get to understand who and what specialisms are on our own campus. I have to tell you, we don't always know. Somebody was saying to me earlier, oh, there's a great conference happening at your place in May, and I'm like, which is quite typical, I think, of the campus, and we're by no means a large campus. So One Planet Research Cafe is, the theme is One Planet. The fields can be very broad. We put on the lavish lunch, and we're trying to encourage people from across all disciplines on both the Streatham campus and the Truro campus to get involved. And we begin to have those conversations. MBA students are invited to those cafes so that they have exclusive access to the professors and the research that's going on at Exeter. And then the other part of that is that we're running One Planet Action networks, whereby we invite business networks from the locality in to mix with our students. So we're just trying to mix it up and open the dialogue. So the story going forward is one of building profile, of creating influence, but by cascading best practice and sharing our learning. And that's why something like the Green Gown is very important to us. It's about capturing the story, about understanding why we're doing that and wanting to actually reach out. Because it is about building alliances. It's about partnering and saying to people, let's actually look at how we're educating our managers. At a time particularly when economic climate is putting pressure on to actually revert to business as usual. We don't want business as usual. We want these difficult conversations, and they are challenging at this time. So my three kind of pointers from what we put together and why we put it together is know why we were doing this. We took a bold step, but we were very clear as to our purpose in doing that. Being clear about the principles. When in the early days we were going out about in Europe building profile, it was quite evident that a lot of people couldn't answer the question, what's the assumption upon which your program is designed? What's the assumption upon which your program is built? And I think that helps us to keep the story together, even though we are innovating and having to adapt as we go. And cascading and sharing the message in the sector is really important, because there's this other reach, which is about management generally, and about the benefits of partnership with people with profile like WWs. So I'm happy to answer some questions at the end, yeah? And yeah, the Exeter story so far.
Okay. One thing that strikes me is the diversity of these projects are all so different, because within one organisation you probably find lots of different examples as well. In Bedford College, we have been involved with EAUC for a number of years now, and our first application for Green Gown Awards went in 2008, and we won, which was absolutely fantastic. And then we have submitted an application every year since then, and each year we either won or got highly commended. And there seems to be a pattern here, winning highly commended. Hopefully next year can be yours. Our first submission was about courses. What I'll do is, the time that I've got here, I'll spend telling you a little bit about each application, just a summary of each application. Then I'll give you some hints as to how I have approached to preparing this application form. I have done all of them myself, so I can answer any questions you might want to ask. Okay, courses. In 2008, we had established a number of environmental technology courses at Bedford College. We were at that stage the first in the country, which was quite unique within the sector. We had also started to higher level courses, such as foundation degrees in sustainable construction and building services and sustainability in collaboration with our local university. We had embedded sustainability into all vocational disciplines in the form of projects, assignments, and other ways as well, making the topics relevant to what's happening out there in industry, for example. And we also already had quite a few other courses under development at that stage. But the most important thing that I highlighted was that we were sharing our achievements and our work with the whole of the sector. And we won. In 2009, we applied in the colleges category. And I sort of looked at the whole picture of what we were doing as a college. We had invested in staff, we had invested in skills for staff, we had invested in resources, course developments. We had made improvements to our buildings that were already sort of proving worthwhile in terms of our reduction in carbon emissions. And we were we continued to be proactive across the sector. At that point, we had completed application for a regional multi-million pound project. We had put a partnership together and it was just ready to go. So at that point, I was able to say our application has been successful, this project is about to start, and that helped us. By the way, the project relates to across the whole region, trying to stimulate the growth of a low-carbon economy by supporting small and medium-sized enterprise developments. 2010 skills category. I focused on the skills elements, in particular what we're doing to meet the national targets. How are we helping as a sector and as a college? I showed evidence that we had embedded sustainability into all training programs to help prepare learners for a low-carbon, resource-efficient economy. We had a particular focus on areas which would have the biggest impact in helping the UK achieve its carbon emissions, carbon targets, reduction targets, and in particular construction engineering. We have community sustainability initiatives linked to the learning processes, enhancing learning, but supporting what's happening within our communities. And we continue to play a highly proactive role nationally. And that got us the win. In 2011, interactive learning for sustainability. This is part of an ELSIS funded project, Learning and Skills Improvement Service funded project. As a college, we received a small amount of funding from ELSIS. I used that funding, split it amongst as many departments as I could, to give them an incentive to be engaged, financial incentive, as well as all the other incentives they already knew about. I was able to engage staff and students. We identified projects, and all of the departments helped us develop a whole range of interactive learning resources, either subject-specific or generic. All of those resources are now available on the Excellence Gateway for everybody to use freely. So that got us highly commended. We had a very strong competition from Exeter. So, right, just a few hints. How do I approach the whole application process? You find in the guidance from EAUC, they're actually very clear about what they want to see. They want a very short summary, as catchy and as descriptive as possible. And then the initiative to be described in under 300 words, Summarize the benefits in bullet point format. Summarize in bullet point form the significance to the sector. In stage 1, you can only stick to up to 3 pages. In stage 2, maximum 6 pages, including all the evidence and supporting documents. You really need to stick to this. Other helpful tips. Make sure you read the criteria carefully and stick to it. The first thing that you should be doing is looking to see what your key achievements are and select the awards category that matches those achievements. Once you've done that, don't start filling the form in yet, too soon. Start identifying your achievements and collating the related data and making a list of your sources of evidence. Stick to the entry criteria and ensure that your application is thorough but concise. Don't make it too wordy, and you can't anyway because you've got a page limit. Make sure that you capture all the key data and that describes your project as the best possible basis. So I'll give you some examples of the sort of evidence I've provided in the or 2 of the more recent applications. For the skills category, I provided team structure, sustainability team structure that supported the college-wide developments. I provided web links to our policy and to our Green Bedford College website. And anybody could go onto our website and see what sort of information we've got there. I provided evidence that sustainability is now monitored through our quality processes. I provided partnership examples, evidence that we share and disseminate good practice. And I gave as many images as I could possibly find to show people exactly what was happening, because they usually work really well. Because, they just tell you a lot more than words would. So use images whenever possible. 2011 courses category. Again, I used loads of images as evidence and provided access to the information so that they could see for themselves what we had done, what we had achieved. And this is just some example of the images in the last submission, the resources that were developed. As I said, there were 10 sets of resources at 3 levels, subject-specific, generic, full variety. I couldn't have possibly included them all in the submission. By giving them the link, they were able to find out that information for themselves if they wanted. I hope that's helpful. Thank you. You have some time for questions.
I was just going to mention that the applications for this year open in June and more information will follow. So if you're inspired by S&T to put in your own application, more information will come out soon.
Thank you. Questions? Should we sort of...
The exit course, you decided it was quite a risky thing to do to start with, but did you think it was more of a risk because you didn't know where the outcome was going at the end of the day? If you don't have corporate interest in the product that you're producing, i.e. this particular area, where this should go with it?
Yeah. I think some of that risk was mitigated by being partners with WWF, and WWF run a program in Europe called One Planet Leaders, which is part of the CPD program. And for them, the natural progression was to have a fully recognised qualification through a good university. So some of that risk was mitigated because we could build on that, their relationships with the corporates. We still now have students from last year and halfway through this year saying, don't know what we want to do with this. And I think this is the biggest question for people coming through this. Some want to go into NGOs, but some do want to go back into business as change agents. But it's finding that route back in that we're having to
depends on how committed your organization is. In my case, although I had full support from my principal, it took a while for other reasons. The fact that I had started the development as the director of technology at the time, and I was focusing on technology only. As it grew into some other things, other sort of things developed out of that, then we had a whole college focus, and then that led to other things as well. So it takes time, it will not be overnight, and it also depends on engagement at all levels and commitment at all levels as well. Very, very kind of.
Did you have lots of resources in terms of people and time to do that, so you kind of find to the low pass or engaging senior people down?
When I was the director of technology, I had 120 staff, which meant that I could prioritize what they did, and we had a multi-million-pound budget, and I could prioritize, put some of the money towards it. But that's an exception. I don't think most people would be in that position. It depends again on the college commitment and what sort of resources that we need to put towards it.
Can I just add that when you something like a green gown, actually then leverage more resource first. At the senior levels of the university, I think being recognised within one's own sector actually enabled them to, actually maybe that is good, maybe that does need the resource. And actually I found with the green gown it did leverage higher up.
Actually, that's a very good point. That's helped me greatly as well. The fact that we work with green gown awards when we had national recognition, and that raised the profile within the college as well. Any other?
Just an observation, over at Hampshire College in Wales, we have the EAUC, have you ever heard of it? Environmental Sustainable Development and Global Citizenship.
I heard of it.
Yeah, and that's basically a Welsh government-led initiative where we have to embed sustainable issues throughout the curriculum. So it makes it a little bit easier, because when the SD, our Ofsted, come down to look, they expect to see elements in there, so it's quite a good driver when you've got that coming through.
And many of you will know that the whole Ofsted inspection framework has got sustainability embedded within it. But up until now, not many inspectors actually have bothered asking about it. But they have recently received a guidance on what they should do during inspections that will hopefully help make it a more prominent part of the inspection process.
One of the things that occurs to me, how difficult was it to get the data you needed for those particular projects you focused on?
Yeah. I asked him that question. I think it varied tremendously across the case studies that he was working on. I think there was one case study, I think which one it was, where he really couldn't come up with a defined answer. I think if we were able to bring the slide up, it was kind of, there was a question mark, or it was kind of the range. And I think there was also a couple of bullet points there. It obviously helps to focus on a carbon-intensive sort of area. So engineering is an obvious one. And to some extent, yeah, if you can have an area where you're going to be able to get the market statistics, I think that's difficult.
I think at the end of the day, what you're doing, you're capturing a snapshot of some activities.
Yeah.
But not all of them, because obviously most of us are doing a range of different things, or maybe doing a range of different
Yes.
things. Some more measurable than others.
Yeah.
Usually it was quite holistic.
Yeah.
So, don't give a true picture of all the things we do, but
Sure.
just give an indication of some of the
Yeah.
things we can affect. It's quite powerful.
Yeah. No, it is a case, I think, of cherry picking out certain areas and certain topics, and but it's not just research; it's also the learning side of things as well. It's quite interesting, the impact of the training they do for landfill gas inspectors, which is one you wouldn't sort of it's logical when you look back at it.
It'd be nice in a couple of years' time to apply that principle to the experienced sexes.
Sure. And also the office with the work that Essence have been doing, on some of the skills. People are coming out of the college and they're having a huge impact in terms of the technologies they're applying. And the methodology would certainly fit that.
Can you tell us on the brain print again? Have I got it right that the ceramic coatings on turbine blades are leading to carbon savings in each year, which are 20 times greater than brownfields?
So I couldn't do the maths in my head. Our carbon footprint is about 18,000 tonnes a year. And the savings were just over 500. So you do the maths.
Sounds like about
30 times.
Yeah.
So that's year.
But it doesn't, see, I'm the energy manager, so it doesn't help me to have that kind of statistic out there.
No.
So why have an energy manager if we can just do it with the research? So that's why we're saying it's not an offsetting exercise, it's just making a point.
Yes.
We are a carbon intensive university, so if you look at us in the Green League, we don't do that well, and that's partly because we are carbon intensive, we don't have many students, we're very research based, but we are taking both sides of the equation seriously.
We had David Hensham from the NHS talking yesterday, and he talked about the danger of what he described as moral offset in the public sector. Because we're doing these good things, we don't need to worry about carbon. Is that a real life?
Oh, I'm experiencing it because of all the schools within Cranfield, the School of Engineering is the most difficult for me to reach out to get them to turn the lights on. But we need to keep plugging away at it because, we have to show that the university is doing something with its on its estate as well as the research.
Presumably, sometimes in university research leads to increased carbon emissions.
I'm sure we're doing that as well. So if you wanted to get the holistic picture, yes, you have to do that as well. I'm sure we're promoting things that perhaps we shouldn't be.
From time to time.
Yeah.
Do we have any other questions? Okay, thank you.